to the maiden edition of Health. This show is designed to clear any misconception you have about your health. We are going to discuss a lot of conditions that you are getting during your life, genetic conditions. We'll go through them step by step. We'll take them condition by condition. These are things that you inherited from your parents and you are going to live with for life. Today we are going to discuss more on knowing what it means to be sickling negative and its associated problems. I have two professionals here who would help us delve into our topic for tonight. We are also streaming live on Facebook. You can search GNTV Network and you get us live on Facebook. My costume is by BMS Clothing. You can call on 020-849961. You can locate her at Mamprobi Kamara. And then my hair and makeup is by Penis Experience. You can also call on 05418323737. She's mobile, so when you get in contact with her, should be there and be with you and then make you look great. I have two people here. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I have Mr. Enoch Mensah, a lab technician from Kolebu Hematology Department. And then I have with him Miss Victoria Bampo. She has a very long profile, so I'm wondering how to shorten it, but I would give you a brief about her. She holds a bachelor degree in psychology and master's degree in public health. She's actually a public health nurse from Adabraka Polyclinic. And then she's also the current executive vice president for Junior Chamber International, the project director for Changing Lives Through Health, project director for Sickle Life Ghana, and works with numerous NGOs on health promotion and education. Ms. Vampo, you're welcome.
Thank you.
How is life?
Manager.
Life is good so far.
All right, so we'll go straight to our topic for tonight. We are talking about sickling negative and its negatives. But first, what is sickling, Mr. Mensah?
Well, before I give the lab version of what sickling means to us, what people would generally meet would be from our nurses and doctors. I would like her to give us their definition of what they tell patients.
All right.
Mine is more technical because it's more test related. So after she defines, I'll give you what mine would
What's
entail.
yours is? All right, Miss Bampo.
Okay, so when you're talking about sickling, we actually have to look at the red blood cells, and a normal red blood cells is round and bouncy. It actually lasts for a period of 120 days and it's healthy. So with somebody, when you check your blood cells and you're like, oh, your blood cells are okay, then you are normal. But when they say you are sickling, it means your red blood cells is in a deformed state. Instead of it being round, it is rather sickled shape.
Okay.
Sickle shape meaning is crescent shaped. It looks like the tool they use in harvesting rice. So under the microscope, it is not round and bouncy like a normal red blood cells is supposed to be.
Okay.
Instead, the shape is sickled. So that is what most people end up referring as sickling.
Okay.
Or
So that's sickling.
Yeah, that's sickling.
All right. Mr. Mensah, she's
So-
giving us a definition.
So
for
this is
the nurse's point of view. So
from the
lab
lab test, as she said, it's a deformity.
test. Yeah.
Our basic, how do I call it, preamble is to sort of induce this condition that's in the patient. So that's where we would say a sickling test, a chemically induced hypoxia that is supposed to deform the cells.
Your words, please. Can you break it down?
Hypoxia is the absence of oxygen.
All right.
So this deformity is associated with oxygen, and oxygen is basically the bedrock for every function of the body. So immediately the cells lose oxygen, they will deform if they have deformity associated with it. And the test we use, the basic one, will be Sickling test.
Wow. Wow. What are the various forms of testing we have in the system?
So we've mentioned Sickling, which is just to tell you whether you are a positive or a negative.
Okay.
And the variant we are referring to would be...
Hold on right there. So it's either you are positive or negative.
Yeah.
So there's no way you can be in between, you know. I remember a friend mentioning that.
In between.
Yes,
Okay,
as in
so
be in the middle.
the test.
So no matter what, you can be either positive or negative.
Yes. You actually can get 3 results. You can
Okay.
either be sickling. That means you have the disease condition, which is mostly referred to as sickle cell disease. You can be negative, meaning you can be a carrier, meaning your sickling test, as mentioned, is either going to register as SS, SC, or SA. That's so you have sickle cell disease. That's the sickling is SS.
Okay.
But when you're a trait, you have the capacity of carrying the sickling. So you're a carrier, you don't have the disease condition, but you are able to pass on the disease to the next generation, or to the next person that you give birth to.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have sickle cell traits, and you have the normal one, like you are saying, in between.
Okay.
Those ones, they don't have the presence of the disease condition at all.
Okay, but they also test either positive or negative.
No, theirs is actually negative for sickling. They don't have any sickling registered at all.
Okay. So, Mr. Mensah, we are talking about the test, and then I came in with.
Yeah, so the testing, as I said, there are a number of them. The basic one being the sickle cell test. The sickling test itself is just a set of situations to put cells under pressure and to create lack of oxygen,
Okay.
which induces the deformity. That is basically what the test is supposed to do.
Okay.
The sickle shapes of the cell only appears under stress, and this must be noted. So we in the lab are just inducing it to see whether your cells have the potential of deforming and staying that way under extreme conditions, which would cause your crisis.
Okay.
So the first one will be your sickling test, and with that you just have a positive or a negative. However, there are so many variants of the hemoglobin. Only the S would show a positive under the sickling test. It doesn't tell you anything else. It just tells you whether you have the sickle cell S hemoglobin or not. That's it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that doesn't really say anything, because apart from the hemoglobins, the A, which is the normal, there is an F, which is the fetal. For some people, they have persistent F, which means after the 6 months where you expect babies to have a normal, their F changing to A hemoglobin, they retain it.
Oh, okay.
So that we have the F, we have an S, which would form the sickle cell shape under the sickling test. We have a D, we have an E, we have a beta thalassemia.
Right, Mr. Mensah, wait. it's a very long list, so we'll go down there. But for now, I would like you to hold on to that point, and then I would go into what sickling negative is, because I could realize you are talking about more of the positive. We'll go there, but what sickling negative
Okay,
is?
so as I mentioned, we are putting your cells under an induced condition to tell whether it was sickle or not.
Okay.
That's basically what the testing is supposed to do.
Okay.
So you have a chemical, you prepare a solution, you add it to your blood, you put it on a slide, and then you put a cover slip to prevent reoxygenation. Wait for a while, and under those conditions, the cells, if they have the sickle cell trait, would deform. And under a microscope, you can take a look, and then you can tell whether somebody is positive or negative.
I think
With
we
the
have
other
some
conditions,
slides. I don't know whether
would get those are more for the other testing. When we get there, we'll explain those. For the other conditions, despite the fact that some of them are abnormal, they do not exhibit the tendency of deformity under deoxygenation, and so they would still appear negative when you do the sickling test.
Okay. All right. We'll go for a quick breather. We'll be right back. you just tuned in, this is Facts of Health, and I'm your host, Na Edu. We're talking about sickling negatives. But to be part of the show, you can send us your messages or your questions through 050 1432 820. 050 1432 820. WhatsApp, please. Alright, back to you, Mr. Mensah. We're talking about sickling negatives. So what's really the sickling negative? I think we cutted that at that point.
So the negative is just for other cells either than S to remain their normal shape under a test condition. That's basically the basic explanation I can give you. So we are supposed to put your cells under a certain set of conditions, and the main one would be the cells losing oxygen. The negatives would maintain their shapes, and as she said, the cells are usually round, bouncy. They are malleable, which means they can go through the smaller veins and capillaries. So when you get towards the nerve endings, those are smaller, and so you need your cells to sort of twist its way around to get through. And the bounciness of your cell and its ability not to bend is what gives it the means to go through those parts. If it's negative, it maintains its original shape. The positive lose that bounciness and gain a rigidity, and so you have issues there.
Alright. Ms. Bampo, why is it so important to know your status, whether you are positive or negative?
Okay, so one thing about sickling cell is that early detection is key. Statistically, 1 out of 3 people in a group actually end up having sickle cell disease or being carriers. And children who have sickle cell disease end up 95% of them die before the age of 5. So it is very important that you actually get tested at birth. I think Okonfo Anokye Hospital, the moment a child is giving birth to, they check to find out whether you are sickling negative or positive. Because if they know, one thing about sickle cell is that they are highly prone to infections. So when it's detected early, you are able to control the disease before it gets out of hand. So it's very important for it to be tested early among people to prolong life and also improve health. That's it.
What are actually the types that usually come out to be negative?
Anything apart from the S.
Anything apart from
all the hemoglobins would test negative.
Okay.
Except the S.
Okay.
And this is where knowing your variation becomes important.
Very key. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to find out. You made mention of some few ones. You made mention of some few ones with the S and all. I think I got a C there. And I heard C usually test negative.
Majority of the times they are actually difficult to detect.
They are actually difficult
to detect. So the AS.
Then, if you come out as negative, what should you do further to find out if you are part of the C group?
Okay, so I mentioned that the sickling test is just to test whether you have the S trait or not. But even knowing whether you have an S trait is not enough to tell you what your genotype is. So the gold standard actually for testing for sickle cell patients is electrophoresis, not sickling test.
Okay.
So if you really want to know what your genotype really is, you do a sickle cell electrophoresis, not a sickling test.
Alright, so what's the genotype?
So your genotype is basically, we're talking about your hemoglobin variants here, your building blocks of your red cells.
Okay.
You're trying to identify which is which. The sickling test we talked about earlier was just to tell us that you have a characteristic where you would deform
or not.
Yes.
Okay.
But to know whether it's actually S paired with something else, because usually your mom would give you a 50%, your dad would give you a 50%.
That is a constant.
It's a constant.
Always a constant.
Oh, okay.
And that is why when it comes to determining whether a boy or a girl is born, it depends on which chromosome was given. There is always one must give a 50%. One can dominate. So getting A or getting S or a C or a D from your parent becomes crucial here. Because it's a joint partnership. The baby would always get its half from either of the parents.
Both sides.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, in a way, Ms. Mampo, I think from Mr. Mensah is trying to mean that you must know your family history.
It is very, very important, because even when you have a child at home, sometimes the babies, people come around like, this child looks like the grandmother, this child looks like the grandfather. How come this child looks like the dad more than the mom?
Okay.
So family history has always been one of the most crucial aspects in marriages, especially within our Ghanaian and African context. You need to know the family you're marrying into. For one reason is the diseases that are present within that particular family that you are going into, for the sake of the future generations to come. So family history helps you know the kind of condition that maybe your spouse may have, then what you should expect in the kids that you'll be having. It's very, very important to do that. And with sickle cell like this, like we've actually discussed, we've talked about SS, we've talked about SC. I also talked about those who are the carriers, those who have the trait. These people are the ones who can pass on the gene and have children with the disease condition. So when you are married to your spouse, you need to know your spouse's traits. You need to know your spouse's genotype. And if ideally, in order to decrease the number of children born with the disease condition, maybe you are a carrier, meaning you have the traits. So let's say you are either AS or AC. It's ideal for you to marry somebody who is AA.
Okay, so hold on. Someone who is AC
Yes.
will test negative.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if the person doesn't go further and marries AS, will definitely have
Then you have a chance of giving birth to a child who is
25%.
SS, who is
25
SC. Yeah.
SC, 25%.
25%.
Okay. I know there are some rare cases, very rare ones, whereby you have the person testing negative, although the person doesn't have a C in there, or maybe any other hemoglobin in there, but the person has tested negative. Then the child comes in, and then you have
A sickling
a
child.
sickling child.
Yeah. So meaning the test was not actually a genuine one, or somebody might have made a mistake, or I don't know,
Okay.
maybe the
It's
lab
Mr.
technician
Mensah.
might be,
So-
might be able to give a further
this
explanation.
is where it gets a little technical.
Okay.
When you talk about genetics, the basic for teaching everybody the world is that we'll tell you, we'll usually tell you there's a 50-50%. That is to a large extent, the truth, but not quite.
Okay.
And that's why I mentioned the sickling test is just one. But immediately you want to actually know your genetic status, then things get a little dicey. The gold standard for knowing your genetics is actually your HPLC, high liquid chromatography. That whoever has seen a result of that will tell you basically that even though there are two major genes that would always classify, say an AS based on the percentages, most people would have a minute amount of an F, an A2, a C of some
wow.
sort somewhere. And this is where it gets a little dicey.
Okay.
So when you're talking about genetics, let me put it this way. For the electrophoresis we do, and I'm sure we'll show a strip later and I will explain further, we dilute our blood sample to a certain level. So if, for instance, you got, say, a C from your dad, but the quantity you got is so minute, by the time it's diluted and the test is run, the band that's supposed to be visible is almost has disappeared virtually.
Okay.
So from that context, you only see one major band, and because we are supposed to say it's a 50-50. If it's one major band, we classify it as a double standard. So if we see one band, we won't say it's just an A, we would say it's an AA.
Okay.
But when you run the HPLC or you run the Noguchi uses isoelectric focusing, those are higher grades of chromatography.
Okay, so which means we've bypassed electrophoresis
Yes.
now. Okay.
That gives you percentages, and then immediately you realize that sometimes the major one that say the electrophoresis gave you a band, that was a major one that you classified as say an AA and SS. That person actually had a minor band that didn't appear because of a dilution.
Okay.
So it may not necessarily be because the test was not run correctly. It just means that we had a little error
in there.
So when it comes to genetics, we usually would push you to go do an HPLC.
Oh, okay. Okay. With the genetics, I know people confuse it with blood groups a lot. I know, because I know the alphabets are almost the same.
No.
We have the A.
No.
No, the A is appearing here and there.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it's appearing here and there. So I'll know my blood group. Then I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Why do I need the Sickling test? Because I'm fine. My blood group is fine.
Okay.
It doesn't have S there.
He
So
actually
what's
had the donuts explanation for
Okay,
the
so
blood
what's the
group
difference between the blood group and the
Okay,
genotype?
so both are actually genetic in its classification.
Okay.
But let's put it this way. Let's say your red blood cells are donuts. They represent, like, representation is a donut and they look like it anyway. When you're talking about hemoglobin
They are just not
variants, the hemoglobin variants, we are referring to the type of flour you used in making your donut.
Okay.
So now we are going to the building blocks, and the bakers will tell you there are different types of flour. That is where your hemoglobin variant or hemoglobin or gene is coming from. That's one classification. Now your donut is baked. When you come to blood grouping, it's only just telling you whether you have a sugar topping, a chocolate topping,
A salt topping.
ice cream, whatever topping. That's the finished product. So usually when you're going to buy donuts, they have just the raw donuts, which in the blood grouping would say now, because there's nothing on it.
Okay.
There's nothing on the donut, so that would be your O, usually blood group O.
Alright.
O in the science is now. There's nothing there. That's why we say blood group O. It's not really a class. It just means that there's nothing on it.
Alright.
But immediately you say you have a chocolate chipping on it, we would say it's a blood group A. So it's a chocolate chipped donut.
Okay.
Now there's a class, a different class.
Yeah.
Then when you put, say, vanilla on it, it's a vanilla topping. So now it's blood group B. That's the variation. When you're talking about HB variation, you're talking about what flour you use to bake your donuts. And when you come to grouping, the topping on your now gives it a different class of donuts. That's the difference. And yes, we've met a lot of people that you ask them, do you know your genotype? They're like, oh, I know I'm A positive.
A positive.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
So you see, that's why I'm saying
So
that
it's
the
very
alphabets
important.
are
Yeah.
very,
Very similar. Yeah, but then
Because
blood group and
the fact
genotype.
that we are using alphabets, I know there's AS, I know there's SC, I know, but I've had A plus, I've had B plus. So if I'm A plus, why should I go further?
That's true.
Yeah. So
That's true.
there are a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yeah.
And then I'm wondering what the health system is doing to
Inform
contain
people.
this, because it's becoming in a way that when, like you said, it goes down to marriage and childbearing.
Exactly.
So when we have children as youth now, we follow love and then marry, and then when the children come in, we are like, oh no, it's not from my family, it's from
Yeah,
your family.
it's from your family.
It's a curse
Yeah.
to know that you are Sickling positive.
It's
Yes. So you end up arguing with either your wife or your husband about his family and all. That's why I asked whether it is necessary to know your family history, because you get to a point, from what Mr. Mensah is saying, it might be that your dad might not have, your mom might not have, but it can be something that is down there.
Okay, so based on classification, as I said, we immediately we run say electrophoresis, and for instance, there are some slides. I think that would give you a perfect example of.
Okay, so if we could get our slides for Mr. Mensah to give us a further explanation into our tests. Alright, so
for instance, very recently, this is like last week.
Okay.
Last week, there's a friend of ours that wants to get married. She's sickle cell, so she insists you get tested. The guy's a doctor, so of course he never falls sick. You'd assume he's fine. He runs a test, and the result comes that he's AS. And the other, I forgot to mention, we also have another test. There's a newer test that's a strip. Okay, so on your screen you see that's your basic electrophoresis. On the far end you see 3 bands.
Okay.
That's our control. You C, S, and A.
Yeah.
And this is based on mass to charge ratio. So your variants are heavy, and if you apply a charge, they move. So we are moving from the left to the right.
Okay.
A is usually lighter, so it moves first. So you see A lined up on the extreme right end. All the first bands you see there are A. But in the middle, you see there are 2 bands. So ideally, when you see one band, we would assume that you took A from your mom, A from your dad.
Okay.
That's the basic. So instead of saying just A, we would say AA.
Alright.
But when you come to the middle, there are 2 bands. And that's the band on the left end is a C. So now this patient is AC.
Okay.
But assuming that the percentage is so low that by the time you dilute, because we do about a 20% dilution to run that test,
Okay.
immediately the percentage is so low that C band becomes faint. Sometimes so faint you can't actually see. Yes.
Okay.
And so the test, the technician would just tell you are AA because they didn't see the second band. In this case, the person feels they are fine.
Okay, so the technician is not wrong.
Not entirely, yes.
Yeah.
So immediately the genetics, like the baby's paternity, is called into question, and you say they should go and do HPLC. Then you realize there's a small amount of C that was not picked up by this method.
Okay.
I have 2 slides at the far end. If you could go to the very end of the slides.
Okay.
Kindly go.
So, alright.
Yeah, so stay there. This that you are seeing is a case of a problem I encountered just last week.
Okay.
As I was saying, this patient is SS. She wants to get married. Meets a doctor. He doesn't fall sick, so he had assumed he's AA. But she insists he should. He does the test and they say he's AS. But they sent me a result. That was their mistake. They sent me a wrong strip. If you go back, there's a strip, a newer test.
Yeah.
Kindly go back. Yes, this is a newer method for field work,
Okay.
which gives you your genotypes.
Alright.
When they ran this test, the result they sent me was not that of an AS. So I was like, it doesn't make any sense. Let the person come, we would retest using the traditional method. But when they came, I ran this test, and the person was AS
Okay.
per the strip.
Yeah.
But when we go back to our results,
So
please go back to the results.
So the other one.
Yeah.
No,
Please go forward.
Go for it. Is that the one?
No.
Okay.
Yes. Immediately I ran the test. You can only see one band there. You are supposed to see one band on the top, and then the next which is the middle, which will be the S.
Yeah.
But there's only one band.
Okay. So that gives us automatically
No,
It-
in
it
this
becomes-
case, if I had run this first time, I would have said this person is SS.
Ah.
Now you see the percentage there. So I have told this person to go and do an HPLC to see the percentages of A they have. Because the test we are using, the strip, the things you're checking are already there. There's A there, there's S there, there's C. So immediately you add the patient's blood, it will react and the band will disappear. In the previous strip, there are only two bands, which means that there's an A and there is an S. But immediately we run the gold standard, the traditional one we usually use. This person has so much S more than an A. A so minute that it's not showing on our strip.
But you're saying he's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes. And this is a doctor.
Interesting. This actually tells me that our education is not yet gone. I
Exactly.
think my public health nurse will tell me something about, because you are mostly on the educative part.
Exactly.
So what's happening?
So it's important, like I said, in our Ghanaian setting, the moment you give birth to your child, one, let that child get tested. If the child grows to a certain age and he or she begins to complain about certain conditions, then you know there's a problem. But even if not, after certain years, just walk into the hospital and do a random test to find out, especially if you know that either yourself or your husband's family has a tendency of having sickling somewhere.
So we still come down to the family history.
Exactly.
So I have to know my grandmoms,
You have to know everything.
I have to know my uncles, I have to
Exactly,
know my
and check.
brothers, and interesting. Does it end there when you know you are negative?
As I said, sickling just tells you whether you have your cells have the tendency of deforming or not.
Okay.
So sickling in itself is not really a standard for anything. But usually it's a quick answer to some of the questions we have. But as time has gone on, we realized that also brings a lot of challenges for us. I can give you an example. We have a patient that when we test, we've tested several times. So many times it doesn't even make any sense anymore. And she's constantly AF.
Whoa, I've not heard of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mentioned that babies would have F hemoglobin. By 6 months, it should have all changed to an A, an S, a C, something else. But some people have what we call persistent F. So they retain their F. But if the F is so much, they tend to exhibit tendencies that would be classified as a sickle cell. So this patient I'm talking about, that's AF, has the jaundice eyes, has all the clinical signs. So we've
Wow.
tested several times and constantly AF, no variation.
Where do you classify such a person?
We still treat them as sickle cell because unfortunately, because the clinical signs tend to present the same way as sickle cell, you treat them the same way.
Wow.
The funny bit is F is a protective hemoglobin. F coupled with S, they tend to fare better than any of all the comparisons. So S is the bad one, SS is the worst, SC, S beta tau.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But if you have the SF,
in the way she said, seriously.
but if you have the SF, those patients tend to fare better. And I know you probably heard the term hydroxyurea. For those
Yeah.
under the sickle cell education, they would have heard that term. And this drug is supposed to increase your F, which is supposed to reduce your symptoms. So yes, F to a certain amount is good. Unfortunately for persistent F, it goes past the, I think, roughly 40%. If it hits past that, now it gives you a different side effect.
Wow. I'm enjoying it here, and I know you are also enjoying it. We are learning more. This is still Facts of Health. If you just joined in, we are discussing sickling negative and its negatives. I am Ruby Adu. We still have our WhatsApp numbers. You can send your messages through the WhatsApp line is 05014328820. 05014328820. I think it's displayed on the screen. So, Mr. Mensah, back to you. I was asking whether it ends there when you do the electrophoresis.
To a large extent, it answers most of our questions, yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as we've discussed, some people have paternity issues based on classification that were given to them, or their lack of trust of some of the results that they got. So we have the HPLC, or isoelectric focusing. That always gives you a better picture and percentages to why. So yes, HV electrophoresis is good to a large extent, but it doesn't answer all our questions.
So we should go further now.
Exactly.
Whenever you are not satisfied, yes.
Okay. So we have some messages here. We'll take them. This one says, "Good evening. I'm Rita. My third child was diagnosed SS some few months after birth. She looks very healthy, but at least every 3 months she's in pains. My girl have been on medication since she was diagnosed with SS, but she still has crisis. What should I do? She's 1 year and half."
Okay.
Miss Bumpy.
So it's good that she knows the condition that her child has, and the fact that she has sickle cell and she's been diagnosed positive. The crises are, she's born with it. She has to live with it, and the only thing you can do, especially in terms of children, is as a parent, you need to monitor them consistently and persistently, because children will not understand. They always have to take medications. They are not allowed to go outside without a sweater. They are not allowed to play with their friends. All of these things, your child is going to go through it. So as a mother, first of all, you have a child who is having the disease, and when the child is sick, as mothers, how they feel, I cannot imagine, because I'm no one, but I am a person living with sickle cell disease and I'm SS. So what you need to know is that, first of all, get a clinic, a doctor, a sickle cell doctor, who is going to take care of your child every other day or every other time that your child falls sick. Secondly, you yourself need to get yourself educated into the disease condition, because like she says, every time her daughter is sick, meaning the child is being exposed to certain pressures or certain things in the environment that he or she cannot live with. So you need to know what are the things that precipitate the child from getting crisis. All these crises that you get, there's something that starts it. You need to start studying your child. It might be food, it might be the weather, it might be the environment. As a mother, you need to know. And then make sure that whatever your doctor or your sickle cell doctor tells you, you follow according to. And it's not going to be an easy journey. She needs to breast up, like, actually, because mothers in their lives of sickle cell.
Oh, she didn't actually mention if that's her first child or
she
not.
says her third child that has been diagnosed with the disease. Yeah.
Okay.
So meaning the first two are healthy. So like we said, statistically, you either have a 25% chance if you're meaning she's a carrier, and the husband, if the child is SS, meaning both of them are carriers, meaning they are AS. And the first child doesn't have the sickling. That's good. The second also escaped, but then the third end up picking up the S, both S from the mom, S from the dad.
I think we would go further and discuss sickle cell disease.
I think you should.
We should.
I think you should.
There's one other message here. "Hello, I'm PSCA. Thanks so much for this health program. I was really confused about this sickle cell thing and the blood group." She has the emoticons there and the blood group. "But thanks to this program, I'm clearly okay now. Thanks to you, dear, and I love your hair." Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Mensah. Okay, someone also says, "I'm enjoying the discussion. Kudos," from Esinam Brown. Esinam, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. You're still watching Facts of Health, and we are live on GN TV. We are also streaming live on GN TV Network, Facebook. You can also follow us on all our social media handles. We have Facebook, Facts of Health, Twitter at Facts of Health 1. With Twitter, you have the facts, capital F, and then the capital O, and the capital H with 1. Then we are on Instagram, facts.of.health. Thank you so much for staying with us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Facts of Health, Twitter at Facts of Health 1. Thank you.